everyone, and welcome back to our channel here at Starbright Productions on YouTube. First of all, we would like to wish a happy and safe 4th of July Independence Day celebration for all of our friends in United States of America. Congratulations to you all for celebrating 247 years of freedom. Today, in response to America's celebration of freedom, we have something a little different for you. We have no trains today. Instead, we have a different kind of a story for you. I live in Philippines, and back in the Cold War and the USSR, the United States always kept a large military presence here in the Philippines. Not so much after the USSR fell in 1990. That was my year. I am a 1990 baby. But now there is a question with the conflict with China in the South China Sea. Things have changed. So let's us watch a BBC broadcast of what is happening now between the US and Philippines. You ready? Here we go, guys.
The United States has signed a deal allowing large numbers of its troops to return to the Philippines for the first time in 3 decades. Both countries are seeking to counter China's growing military influence in Southeast Asia. The US has agreed to almost double its number of military bases in the Philippines. The announcement was made by the American Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who's visiting Manila. The deal, which was struck with the new government of President Marcos, will see American forces permanently based at 9 sites in the Philippines. And the decision comes as China is seeking to increase its influence. But Mr. Austin made no direct reference to China. Take a listen.
America's commitment to the defense of the Philippines is ironclad. Our alliance makes both of our democracies more secure and helps uphold a free and open Indo-Pacific. And today we discussed ways to make this vital alliance even stronger. We talked about enhancing our mutual defense posture and strengthening our commitments under our mutual defense treaty. We discussed expanding the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, which allows our forces to operate together more efficiently from key sites across the Philippines. And we're pleased to announce today that President Marcos has approved 4 new EDCA locations. And that brings the total number of EDCA sites to 9.
Well, our correspondent Rupert Wingfield-Hayes is in Manila and told me more.
Well, the Americans have been trying to get this deal done for quite a long time, all the way back to 2014. It's really been held up by the previous Filipino president, Rodrigo Duterte, who wanted the Philippines to be much closer to China and sought much better relations with Beijing, and therefore blocked any new deal with the US on the military alliance. Now that President Marcos is in power here, he has pushed ahead quite quickly to approve this deal, and that's been a bit of a surprise. But America essentially wants access to the Philippines because of its concern over China's activities, firstly in the South China Sea, but I think increasingly because of concerns over Taiwan and contingencies for the US and its allies. If China were to ever move militarily against the island of Taiwan, they need places to base their troops, to base munitions and supplies. And the obvious place is the north of the Philippines, because if you look at a map of this area, Luzon, the big island of Luzon in the north of the Philippines, where I am now, this is the largest piece of land close to Taiwan outside of China. And so it's an obvious place that the US would want to have a military presence. And that's essentially what they've started to get access to with this agreement today.
be a very significant US presence in the Philippines, Rupert, but that hasn't been the case for about 30 years. What would this new one be like?
Well, it looks like it's going to be very different from what the US used to have here during the Cold War, because then it had 15,000 troops here, 2 enormous bases, one an air base, one a big naval base at Subic Bay. That is not at all what America is getting with this deal. Instead, it's going to get access to 9 bases, Philippine military bases. They won't be US bases. They'll be inside Philippine military bases across the archipelago. But the new ones that they've got agreement with today, we understand, are in the north. So that's in Palawan on the coast of the South China Sea, and in Luzon facing the South China Sea and also facing north towards Taiwan. And that will be a place where they can build facilities, they can place supplies and munitions, and they will be able to rotate American troops through those bases. So the numbers of troops we're talking about at the moment are relatively small, but they could be ramped up in times of crisis or if there were a conflict.
What sort of political reaction has there been, Rupert? There is quite strong opposition to this in some quarters, isn't there?
There's opposition here in the Philippines from left-wing parties and groups. They have said this is a return of the imperialist power and that it's always been an unequal relationship between the Philippines and the United States, and that it's a sort of return to the past, and so they are absolutely against it. Obviously, China does not like this, and there have been a number of editorials in Chinese newspapers in recent days accusing the United States, of leading the Philippines into a trap. And I think that signifies that China is blaming the United States for this and saying to the Philippines government, look, don't be led down this path. We want to be friends with you. We are neighbors. We want to keep this good relationship. Don't be fooled by the Americans. Don't let them do this. But the Philippines is in a very delicate position because, on the one hand, it wants good economic relations with China, but it's also afraid of China's territorial encroachment in the South China Sea.
Rupert Wingfield-Hayes.